All right, and we are recording, Jared. Let's just
Chad. I purposely was saving this for the pod, obviously.
Good. I'm excited. You got me on.
Not. No, you're not.
I'm not.
At this point, we're on day 4.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not excited. No, I know exactly what you're talking about now. Well, yeah, a couple episodes ago, you asked for my opinion on who would win.
Yes.
And you know what, Jared, I am proud to take accountability for what I said, and I said I thought that
I mean, you're not wrong.
Like,
you haven't lost yet, by the way.
Well, I hope I was wrong.
Of course.
To be honest, I mean, here's the deal, everybody. If you didn't check out our last, it was 2 episodes ago. I predicted that
it was last episode.
Was it last?
I put
episode?
it out. I edited it before.
I see. You put it out early. Okay.
It came out way after the.
Anyways, we were talking about the election, and my prediction was that I thought that Trump would win or somehow find a way to win, which we could still see. I'm concerned he's obviously going to do some type of lawsuit. I mean, he already has filed for, different lawsuits.
Georgia's already saying they're going to recount.
Right. And so, yeah, we're on day 4, and it's just going to last a lot longer, I think, until we know for sure.
It's been this stalemate of 264 for Biden, 214 for Trump for the past
couple days.
Maybe since Wednesday,
yeah,
Thursday-ish.
I think so. And we're on Saturday for
Although
those of you who
the
don't
big
know.
news is Georgia is turning blue, PA is turning blue, Nevada, they're counting a vote per day, it feels like.
Yep.
Look at this. So
the amount of memes that have come out about, like, if someone's taking too long, it's like, you're like Nevada right now.
If I just look around the country, Maine, 99%, New York, 78%, but New York is a giant state. Pennsylvania, 99%, Ohio, 96%, Michigan, 99%, Illinois, 92%, Arkansas, 99%, Mississippi, 99%, Nevada, 87%.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
It's like, bruh, what are you guys doing over there?
Well, there was a really good meme that was like, I guess Nevada. I didn't know this, and actually, if you could pull it up, Jared. Somewhat according to the meme, so sorry we're going off of meme news here. This isn't a habit we try to make here at the Untranslatable Podcast.
We had a meeting with like a team meeting at work, and we spent the first, no joke, 10 minutes of it laughing at Nevada memes.
Oh, I'll bet. But one of them said that they were the 50th, the lowest state in education. Can you confirm if that's right for me? Because I don't want to bash them if it's not. I don't want to be spreading lies on our podcast here. But that was the meme. It was like, well, if you're 50th in education in the U.S., no wonder it takes you so long to count all the votes, which I thought was pretty funny. Let's see, who is dead last in the U.S.?
That's the worst state to be a woman.
Oh, that's a
best states for education. I guess in the inverse, then it'll also give us the worst.
We got or does it only go to 15? It's the top 15.
Oh no, expand list.
Oh, there we go. What's number 50, Jared?
Alabama.
Oh, Alabama.
New Mexico.
So where's
45?
Nevada? Okay, so they're not the worst.
Yeah.
They're not the worst. Ironically, the same number as the president, Donald Trump is number 45. They're number 45.
Interesting.
Illuminati? I don't know.
They're going blue.
That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like.
That's what's interesting is a lot of the I don't know, where is Michigan? We should totally do an state's education episode.
Yeah, we should.
Because that is an interesting.
We're 37, not that great.
Oh, that's not good. That makes me a little sad.
I went to a private school.
But,
so.
well, speak for yourself, Jared. I guess I'm Mr. Dummy over here. Going to a public school.
I don't know those problems.
Right. Well, we will be talking about school today, but online school and online teaching.
That's true. By the way, just because I went to a private school really doesn't mean my education was that much better.
That would also be an interesting discussion at some point. Right. You had to wear uniforms. No women allowed, so you only could focus on education.
They just. But you did have This is the first year
that's right.
They go co-ed just because.
But that's because of the enrollment. Right. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of private schools are also businesses.
I mean, that's the first and foremost. That's what you have to be if you're a private school.
Universities too, though. I mean, university. I mean, they're
part of the reason probably why college football is still happening.
But anyway,
back to the election.
Yeah, you read my mind.
It's been a weird sort of back and forth between stop the count, finish the count. Now, obviously, as far as the Democrats go, most of them are fully like finish the count because. Because they count the mail-in ballots last, and the mail-in ballots tend to favor the Democrats. But also, they're just because you should count them all in general.
Right.
But there's this weird thing where depending on the state, Republicans are like, keep counting, stop counting.
Right.
But the weird thing is, if they stop counting right now, then Biden wins. So it's like, I feel like now the only hope is for them to continue saying count it all. But then it goes to, but then there's corruption. It seems to always be something there.
Well, it works either way. Right. So when Trump won, a lot of people said that Russia tampered with the election.
Sure.
I don't know how true that is. I have no idea. Right.
I don't either.
But that's what a lot of people were saying. I'm just, especially to our listeners out there that aren't in the U.S., that's what a lot of Americans, I think, said at the last election. Now, this election, it's the other way around. So a lot of Republicans are saying, well, voter fraud.
But to me, the Russian thing seemed a little more valid than what's happening right now.
Well, I do think that there were definitely cases online of like Russian trolls and like trying to influence things. Yes, but I don't know how. I don't know how they hacked into the election, but I don't know enough about how that stuff works.
Right.
But that's the other thing is I think a lot of people on the right, sadly I have an aunt who's a Trump supporter, and so I was seeing all the crazy stuff she was posting online, and so.
How does it make you feel when you see that, and then you go, then you guys have Thanksgiving together?
I mean, well, we don't have Thanksgiving together, so problem solved. But I actually haven't seen her in years.
Oh, okay.
But the whole point is. Jared, I think it's important to see these things. I don't care if it's your family member or someone that, or I look at it at a couple different ways. If you're going to be on social media, it's good to see all the good and the bad if you can, or not all, but it's good to get a mixture. I mean, when a couple of years back, when I was in grad school, I actually followed a bunch of Republican and conservative pages on Facebook. And the funny thing is my liberal friends were actually the ones who would write me and were like, why are you supporting, Trump, or why are you on Facebook? And I'm like, because I want to see what they're posting too. Because what a lot of people argue and spread things based on headlines they see. Right? I've done it too. I've shared stuff based on headlines I've seen, and I try not to do that anymore because it's like, you don't know what the narrative is. And so it's the same thing with like my crazy aunt who posts all this crazy Trump stuff. It's like it's good to read because you can kind of see what other people are kind of thinking about, no matter if you agree with it or not. And there are a lot of people that think these ways. So I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I get that. It's important to there's one thing to call these people stupid and just sort of disregard them, but they do exist. And I guess there is something to at least trying to understand where these people are coming from, even if you don't agree with it or you're not gonna change their views. You're not gonna whatever.
Right.
But I do get that. But I think I do that sometimes with podcasts. Like I used to. Well, I still do. I listen to like podcasts of people that I really don't agree with. Now I don't go like full
Alex Jones.
Yeah, I don't go full Trump supporter like Facebook account. Podcast style of podcast,
freak 7 days a week.
Steve Bannon, he got permanently suspended from.
Really?
I don't know why they call it permanently suspended. Why don't they just say banned? Right. Permanently suspended from Twitter.
I did not know.
Well,
that.
because he was saying that I don't remember exactly who, but he was saying that they should behead. I think Chuck Schumer and then some other Democrat and like put them on and display their heads on spikes in front of the. White House as a warning to other Democrats.
Oh yeah,
he said that on his podcast.
Yeah, shouldn't be saying that. even if you're joking, you shouldn't be. I don't think he obviously wasn't joking.
He had no joking tone to him.
Right. But anyways, though, Jared, we were talking about seeing people post these things, right?
Yeah.
And so. When I see I recently unfollowed her so I don't see her posts anymore. But when I still was seeing a lot of that stuff, I will tell you in the beginning I had a knee-jerk reaction to it. Like I would read it and I would get pissed off, or I would.
Sure.
But then I realized that that's not good for me. It's not good for me to. You are literally reading something from someone online that you haven't actually had a personal interaction with in years, and you're letting it make you feel this way.
Especially since part of the reason you haven't interacted, I imagine, is kind of involved with what's happening.
I mean, well, yeah.
Views.
I mean, we just don't. yeah, we just don't really get along very well, I guess. And
so it's like if you know you don't get along is essentially what I'm saying. Well, why are you exposing yourself to her opinion virtually?
Right.
When it's but my family's already we've all already made a point not to really see each other in person. Why am I doing this to myself on Facebook? Right.
Well, and the other thing is too is that I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to see other views and perspectives online, but if it's making you feel or react in a certain way, it's not, not saying that you should just, because, I watched the movie The Social Dilemma, which was pretty interesting.
I need to watch that. I've heard about it.
Watch it and we'll talk about it because it's pretty good. But the thing is that I really truly believe a lot of users of social media websites, they see something they don't agree with and they get really triggered or really offended or sometimes even really hurt. And I think that we put too much value into what random people say on the internet that we don't know and we shouldn't care about.
Yeah.
And that's why, though, I think it's important to read some of these things. When my parents have been following the election, I always tell them, put on Fox and then you can put on whatever you like, because I like to put on Fox because if you see that Fox is saying, like, for example, with the Electoral College votes, if they say it's at 250 or 264 or whatever, then I'm like, okay, if both sides are saying this, then it's more likely to be true.
I do that during the election. I mean, I don't watch TV like that. I don't have cable, but obviously I was going to the websites, and that was going to Fox's site actually made me feel more comfortable about the outcome of this election.
Yep.
Because even Fox was saying the same thing as everyone else.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, okay, because that means it's at a point where not even like the strongest supporters of Trump can deny where it's at.
Right.
And they'll probably they seem like they'd want to deny until the end that like a swing state has been swung.
Right.
But if they're calling that it's been swung, then it's like, all right, if they're saying it, not that I believe it now, but it's like,
right.
It makes me feel better.
Yeah. So I think that's important though to view different sources, but and even different people on social media, but don't let it make you so emotional. I've realized, and if it does make you emotional, then cut it out. I mean,
well, I've had to do that. As I tell you, I listen to podcasts that I don't fully agree with. Over the years, there are ones that have definitely gone, because it's gone from me not really agreeing with them to just getting angry when I listen to them. And I'm like, well, I don't need to do this to myself.
Right. What about it makes you angry? Is it because they're saying something that's not truthful, or what is it?
There's definitely some of that. There's some like ignorance to the statement,
Okay.
Or it's like sometimes they'll say something, especially like say something involving race, where it's like, if they say like if they're speaking like on behalf of black people or whatever, whether they're black or not, and I'm just like and it just this I don't know. I just don't like hearing something that seems so demonstrably false to me.
Right. Well, and also I just don't think it's right for anybody to speak for another group if they're not that group. I'm not saying you can't have a discussion, and I'm not saying you can't have an opinion, but for example, if I were to say on behalf of black people, I'm not it's not right.
Not even about, but it's like, well, they'll say like, well, black people aren't even doing this, or black people aren't even, or like how, like in politics, especially where like it's obviously the whole, they always speak on groups so generally, and sometimes it just annoys me. And it's not even just like a political thing. Like it could be just like general stereotypes or stuff. Sometimes I get it. I don't know. But sometimes but really what it is for me is it comes down to like I feel like I can tell like where their heart is at, that's where it's at. So if they even say something that I don't agree with, but I can hear that they're actually like trying to figure out like they're coming from a truthful or a good place, or rather than like some comedian thinking they're being funny by being contrarian or something like that,
or controversial.
Yeah, I feel like I can just feel where it's like I don't agree with you at all, but I hear where you're coming from. You're not just trying to like, you're not just saying stuff to say stuff,
Right. And I think I like that you brought up, Jared. I think since we started this podcast, it's been a learning experience for the both of us of, when to draw the line with jokes, and I really try to not just say stuff to say stuff anymore, regardless on our podcast, when I'm teaching, talking to friends, to be more precise with what you say and your message too, I think can be really important.
Yeah. I guess once you have a microphone, I mean, we don't have a giant audience, but it definitely makes you think twice about what you're saying.
Sure.
Especially as the one that edits this.
The other thing that's also given me some different perspective on our podcast has been like closer friends and family asking me more about it. Just because, when we started this, we didn't really. I don't think either of us are the types to like broadcast things.
Yeah.
Which is maybe to our detriment, actually, probably as a podcast. Right. We're not marketers. We're not promoters.
I actually am.
Yeah, but you don't post the advertisements. You do the research.
I do like data,
right.
Research. Yeah,
which I think serves you pretty well for this podcast. We used to joke when I was living in the Czech Republic, putting months of research into our episodes,
Yes.
Which to some extent, jokes aside, is kind of true when we do talk about a lot of our experiences. Mm-hmm. Like today with this online learning and teaching challenges, I can tell you a lot of these are things I've been going through either right now or in the past.
And you're on actually both sides of it. I mean, obviously you're a teacher, but then you also deal with a bunch of people's problems with the technology of it.
And I'm taking a course right now on how to be a teacher trainer. So I'm also the student side of it now too. So I've got our bases covered today, Jared. Coming in hot
I'll
and
just
ready.
Sit back and relax on this episode.
Right? Exactly.
I have a question though. Before we move on, why can't we get this counting thing? Why can't it be electronic somehow?
I think I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I think there should be a secure way we could do it electronically,
like a SAT style Scantron,
and it just filters through it, right?
Like a money counter or something like that.
Right.
I just don't understand how we're still at someone sitting in a. And I understand you got to match up the the signatures, but I gotta imagine there's some technology that can. Granted, that might be.
I mean, we can submit all sorts of other really important government documents online now. So I agree with
you. I do my taxes online,
right.
like that's pretty important,
right? So
and they don't mess that up. They make sure that goes goes smoothly.
Well, the IRS, no kidding, no kidding.
They get that every year, every cent.
Yeah. Well, the Uncle Sam wants his cut of the pie, Jared.
Yeah,
that's
when it
for
comes
sure.
to discounting what people choose, it's like it's just not every year because sometimes it's a clear blowout. But like, it's not uncommon for it to just be such a blur and shit show.
Well, now also I think the pandemic has added one level of difficulty. I think all of the mail-in ballots, and we've never seen this
Trump
much voter activity. Right.
Well,
sure.
Difficulty
of course.
to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people. It's
the
really
protesters out there.
It's really interesting. You're either really for him or against him. I feel like there aren't a ton of people who are neutral about our current
Sure.
Well, I shouldn't even say our current president because maybe when this drops, he'll still technically be our current president until January.
That's true. Yeah.
Which I have some concerns about that, but we can talk.
A lame duck Trump is terrifying.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Anyway. No. There's for sure. Like, there's no one who's just. It seems impossible to be indifferent to him. It's like I don't even know how that would be possible.
I will say though, I don't agree with a lot of the things that the left paints Trump as. I think they do take it a little far with some of the stuff.
How so?
I don't know. I just think they make a lot of really. When I say they, I mean like the people that are really far left.
Sure.
They just say a lot of blanketed terms about Trump. And say, he hasn't done anything good for the country. But I mean, and I don't know if we can really attribute it to Trump directly, but under his presidency, there have been some decent things that have happened. I mean, you look at our, I hate to say it, but, you look at our economy, before, no?
I mean, I guess, but it's just like, I guess. First of all, I don't know enough about where our economy was,
right.
But I feel like there's too much. He has too much obsession on the stock market, and that is one aspect of it. And like we were, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I don't know if I feel like just by how much bad he's done as a person and policy wise, even if there have been maybe a slight improvement to the economy, in which metric I don't know.
Right.
I would almost argue if it matters.
Yeah, maybe it does
because of all the bad that has happened.
That's a good point.
Is verifiable.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the worst part is just the number of people who've passed away.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. His lack of regard for COVID, as someone that had it too.
Well, I think that's another issue though, is because he had it and he had such great medical care, because for him it was, it seemed like it was no big deal. I mean, he got it. He went to the hospital. Now, we will never truly know how bad it was for him. But I mean, I think that almost, I hate to say it because I wish no ill will on anybody, but I think if he would have gotten sicker or suffered more,
yes,
maybe, you know what I mean?
I agree.
And
I agree, but sometimes I wondered because it is still shocking how they still don't seem concerned about it. Like when you see the way they act and they don't really talk about it being a problem.
Right. Well, and I think
they said we were done past it a couple of weeks ago.
If we would have tackled this more seriously early on, I think. I mean, if you look at other countries now, I mean,
right. I mean,
we would be in a very different place.
That's the thing. He's so short-sighted. Mm-hmm. I feel like he could have had the ego play of eradicating it early,
right?
But he's so short-sighted.
He would have. I'm pretty sure he would have gotten reelected if he would have.
Oh yeah, I 100%. As close as it is right now,
right?
If I 100% agree.
Yeah, if he would have handled the situation better, I bet you he would have been reelected.
Yeah, but I think he's way too short-sighted to even think about it that way, and he doesn't care enough to like. And so, like, he botched it so bad. I think it really just put it over the edge for Biden. As far as we know so far, it seems like I don't know.
Yeah, I think you can definitely argue that. That's for sure.
Do you have any shout-outs or anything?
I don't. Do you?
I actually do have one.
Spread some love.
I was actually going to save it for the next episode, but if you don't have one, I guess I'll spread a little love. I'll turn it up and spread a little love. I guess we're still going to stay a little political here, but this is a shout-out to South Korea. They have legalized abortion after a 66-year ban. South Korea's 66-year abortion ban must be lifted by the end of 2020. The country's constitutional court ruled Thursday in a major win for pro-choice advocates. 7 out of 9 judges ruled that outlawing abortion was unconstitutional. Votes from 6 judges were needed to overturn the ban. I sound like a to overturn the ban. I sound like a news anchor. Lawmakers now have.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. We could do a short little untranslatable news segment. Have like a little did, and we're back with the untranslatable news with our host Jared. And today he's telling us a breaking story about, and then whatever.
Thanks, Chad.
Right.
Lawmakers now have until December 31st, 2020 to revise the law. Termination of pregnancy after 20 weeks will remain illegal.
You can actually do a news anchor voice pretty good, dude.
That's not bad. Person voice. Right. Previously, women have had abortions in South Korea, could face up to a year in prison, and could be fined up to 2 million won, $1,780. While doctors or healthcare workers who helped terminate the pregnancy could be jailed for up to 2 years. While prosecutions were rare, they were not unheard of. 3/4 of women aged 15 to 44 regarded the law as unfair, according to results of a survey released this year by Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs. Around 20% of respondents said that they had an abortion despite it being illegal.
I have to say, I really appreciate when I think it's great when countries give women the right to choose.
Yes.
And I just don't feel right as a guy telling a woman what to do with her body.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Since and according to this article, women have had illegal abortions. I think the fact that it is now legal only makes it safer too, because now a doctor doesn't have to, sneakily do it.
Right. Right. And I hope too, if you make it illegal, it's more talked about in the
less
culture and
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, but I also hope that making it legal, this may sound counterintuitive, but I hope that by making it legal, there will actually be less abortions, because you can educate people more about it and about how to have fun in a safe way, And
I imagine, I don't want to. I'm making an assumption, but if they feel this way about abortion, I imagine that sex education already is sort of a stigmatized thing.
I mean, I can tell you at least my experience with, talking to people in China that they don't have the greatest sex. Not that we have great sex education here in the States either. But, I can tell you at least when I was in high school, I knew, to wrap it up if you're going to be intimate with a lady, or another gentleman, I guess. This is 2020. We're not here to judge.
Or the dental dam.
Right, which nobody uses, but,
I don't even know where you would get one of those.
Probably you'd have to go to a sex shop.
I mean, you could probably maybe. You could probably find it on Amazon nowadays.
Well, you can find almost anything.
But before Amazon.
I love that. I hope you're going to look at this.
Of course I am. I'm sure it's on. I mean, everything's on Amazon.
Right.
Dental.
Put it on your wish list. Your partner is gonna be like, what is Jared doing?
Yeah, you can find them on Amazon.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Strawberry flavor.
There you go. Yeah, there's all sorts of fun little, stuff like that. But yeah, so I think that's awesome though. Good on South Korea.
Yeah.
I always feel terrible when you read stories of anybody who, their health is compromised because of laws, especially if it's a law that, especially kind of this male-female dynamic where, we have, I'm assuming, I could be wrong about this. I don't know enough about the South Korean government, but I would assume the majority of the decision makers there are probably men.
Yes.
And
you heard by the percentage of women, but sure,
Right.
but they were younger. But and the thing is, there is this sort of weird, like something about. I mean, this happens in the U.S. too, but like when it's legalized, where conservative people make it seem like people are just gonna like have
Go
sex
crazy,
willy nilly
yeah,
and just
right.
like, oh, I got pregnant, whatever, I'm gonna go get an abortion,
Right.
and then do
Right.
it again the next day.
Right. I think most normal people,
Right.
Your average man or woman, they aren't just gonna. I don't think this would change
It's not
people's
fun and
behavior that
games.
much.
Right.
Right. Like, I can only imagine how difficult it would be. And I think a lot of people, Jared, want to have kids. Not everybody, but a lot of people want to have kids. And some people, even if it's not planned, regardless, obviously, if it's a one-night stand, it's probably a little different. But you even hear stories of, people, getting pregnant after a one-night stand, and they've always wanted a kid, and they keep the baby, or that whatever.
Sure, of
but I
course.
think giving people the option to choose is the right way to do it, because, and I always hate when people use the argument where. I don't know. We just have some politicians in the States that say some pretty crazy things about this subject.
Yeah, they're gonna rip the baby out at
right.
8
Oh,
months
God.
and 3 weeks.
Right. It's ridiculous. But good on
like, I
South
don't think that
Korea.
happens.
Big ups to them. That's
betcha.
awesome. If I would have known that, I would have prepared a South Korean or a Korean untranslatable.
I have one.
Today. Oh, perfect. Well, get us started, Jared, on some untranslatables, which are idioms, phrases, proverbs, words, axioms that don't translate on a one-to-one basis into English, but we are here, your tried and true seasoned veterans in deciphering these untranslatables. So go ahead and get us started today,
We'll
Jared.
guide you through these untranslatable waters. My first one is Korean, and it's Je ne an gyang. Glasses for your eyes.
What? Glasses for your eyes.
Glasses for your eyes, yes.
So is this like you're not seeing something very clearly? Here are some glasses for your eyes.
No,
Does it mean pay attention?
like if I gave you these glasses, they would not work for you because these are glasses for my eyes.
So glasses for your. Is it glasses for your eyes or glasses for my eyes?
Glasses for your eyes, but
your-
I'm saying
So it's to not see something clearly.
no.
No,
I
okay.
can see clearly because these are glasses for my eyes.
Right.
But if I gave them to you, you might not see as clearly as me because
Correct.
They're not. They don't. But don't think as specifically as I'm saying.
Okay.
Don't think that specifically, but
To be confused.
no, that's what you are right now.
Right. Yes. that is true. Yes.
Okay. Well, once I tell you, I'll explain it. But I think
Okay.
you'll. So essentially, is beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. So it's
Beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. So you are fooled by someone's beauty?
no. So
No,
what's
okay.
beautiful to you might not be beautiful to me.
So just beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
That's what I just said.
I thought you said no.
Beauty
You,
lies in the eye of the beholder versus beauty is in the.
all right. Sorry. I guess I just misunderstood you. But yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's
Beauty's-
essentially
yeah. Okay. So just not my cup
Glasses
of tea.
for my
you know?
eyes. Like,
right.
yeah, that's because
right.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
they look good through my glasses.
Right. Okay. Right. I like that. That's a good one. My first untranslatable, and I think for this episode, both of them today are Japanese.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I've just been on like a Japanese kick. I've been watching more Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z lately.
I noticed your
got my kanji slippers, super comfy. They were on sale online. My other ones are getting a little worn because I wear them all the time. So trying to change them up,
I feel you.
So, anyways, my first one is Japanese, and we'll try to say it here. Donguri no sekurabe. I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
Donguri no sekurabe. And it means it's acorns comparing heights. Oh, we started a little too early. Jumped the gun. We got the in-person untranslatable owl going in the background.
So I imagine that's just apples to oranges.
No.
Can you give me the literal again?
Yes, it is. It's acorns comparing heights. Let me ask you this, Jared. Are acorns generally...
Has that been getting louder? Or is
I
it
don't
just
think so.
me? Okay.
Yes, it's powered by untranslatable energy, and yes.
I swear this is the loudest I've ever heard it.
Right. I don't know, dude. When I've been in my work meetings, it goes off, and I'm just like, damn it. Yeah, maybe I should take the batteries out or whatever. But anyways, our acorns, let's get back to the untranslatable. Donguri no sekurabe. Sorry, I just like to say that. It's fun to say. It's acorns comparing heights. Let me try to help you, Jared. Let me try to guide you by asking you a question.
Okay.
Are acorns usually similar heights or very different heights?
Similar?
Okay.
Oh, well, like
Okay.
it's all the same. Like you're splitting hairs.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of. Okay. I would say, like, for example, say you go to like an art gallery, and maybe it's an amateur art gallery, and you go there and you look at the paintings, and you go, you know what? I mean, it's acorns comparing heights.
That all looks the same.
Yeah, I guess it basically means to describe a group that is roughly the same in ability or quality and usually not at a high level.
So I imagine a bunch of, you know what I think of?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine a bunch of like weekend warrior sports players, whether it be football or
Right.
soccer, basketball,
Mm-hmm.
some of these weekend sports, bragging about how good they are,
Right.
and how like
Uh-huh.
they and really, but really it's a bunch of 45-year-old men that
Right.
that get it together, and it's like this is all acorns comparing
Heights. Exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of a moot point. Nothing really stands out. It's just kind of average, I
Yeah.
feel like, in a way. So yeah, I would agree with that. You got your weekend warriors. They played a soccer game and it was 1-1, and then they spend, an hour talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just acorns comparing heights.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. My next one is Danish, and it's Det var hyggeligt. Hyggeligt.
That was holy? No, I don't know. What's the last word?
Do you remember that word? Hyggeligt. Well, that word was the reason I chose this specifically is because that word was let me see if I can jog your memory. Used in a certain IKEA campaign in search for.
It's like comfortable.
Yeah, cozy. Yeah,
Cozy, right.
kind of like what's the German one that's similar to
Gemütlich.
that? Yeah, thank you.
That's one of my favorite German words. Gemütlich.
Yeah.
We should
So-
do an episode on that favorite German words, because I got a lot of them.
Okay.
That or fun, or just fun German words. That's-
Okay.
Fun
Or
German
favorite-
words.
Okay. And so det var
I'm gonna text you these couple ideas we've had today, because you're gonna. I'll text them to you,
Yeah,
because
I
otherwise
don't always
we're gonna
listen to
forget.
everything.
Exactly.
So det var hyggeligt.
So that was
essentially just
comfortable.
means- yes.
Yeah,
this
that was comfortable. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that what that means? There's no hidden
No,
message?
it's a little different. No, it's a little different.
Okay.
It doesn't really mean comfortable. It
Okay.
doesn't mean like that is something, but not comfortable.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
It
I
was-
stand by what I said.
Okay. So that's what it means.
No, I
No.
stand by what I said. By that's not what it means.
Okay. Give me a clue.
So, okay. Let's say, we went to Cedar Point, and you were like, and I was like, hey, let's go ride the Millennium. Not the Millennium Force, the Top Thrill Dragster. And you're like, no, dude, no, that's not my that's not my steez. I'm gonna pass on that. I'm like, oh, come on, it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun.
It's not my steez.
And you're like, all right, fine, let's go. And we go. You go on the ride, and I'm like, woo, yeah, woo. And you get off, and you're queasy in the face, and you throw up in the trash can. And I was like, how was it, Chad? How was it? And you said, dat var hyggeligt.
So it's like that. So it's you're being sarcastic.
It's a
right?
Yes.
It's a sarcastic phrase to basically say that was not good. That was not. I did not enjoy that.
But so it literally means that was cozy or that was fun.
Right. Okay.
But it is it's mostly used
that was fun.
Sarcastically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's like, oh yeah, I had a great time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nice. Let's end with this untranslatable for today, Jared. Also Japanese. I think you'll like this one. Itachi no saigopope. Saigope. Yeah. Okay. Itachi no saigope, which means a weasel's last fart.
A weasel's last fart? Is that like a last ditch effort? It's is Trump the weasel in the situation? Him saying that it's all fraud, is that his final?
I mean, that could be a weasel's last fart. I'm going to give it to you. Hit that ham horn. I mean, I'm going to give it to you. Basically, a weasel's last fart. Here's the story. So the phrase comes from the fact that Itachi, Japanese minks or weasels, emit a highly unpleasant smell when they are probably when they are cornered or facing danger. And is something done as a last resort.
Yes. Okay.
It's not exactly a polite expression. So to our listeners out there, if you go to Japan, don't just be dropping Itachi no saigope.
But it's like a last ditch effort.
Right. That's, exactly. Yeah. In desperation. Yeah. So that's kind of funny. So
I like that one.
Right. So don't be desperate. But that leads us to our discussion today of our main topic, which is challenges of online teaching and online learning. And I will tell you and our listeners today, Jared, the reason why I thought of this episode idea, because a lot of people, I think, are going through their maybe first semester of fully online education, whether it be K through 12 or higher ed. And I can tell you as a teacher, as someone who trains teachers and someone who is taking an online course right now, I can give you and our listeners some different perspectives today about kind of some of the challenges and the difficulties, and hopefully a couple ideas of, how we can maybe overcome some of these difficulties.
Yeah. And I'm not a teacher, and I'm not taking any classes right now.
But you are working from home.
Yeah, I'm working from home, and I feel like I can certainly relate to a lot of the struggles as teachers. Now, obviously, there's different struggles. I don't have to wrangle children.
Right.
But
it would be a little awkward if...
Sometimes it kind of feels like I do.
Right. I hope none of your colleagues are listening to this episode right now.
But yeah, so just the struggles of doing your job from home in general.
So let me ask you, what do you think? Sorry to put you on the spot, but what do you think the top 5 biggest challenges for teachers, or let's do 3. Let's do 3.
Yeah.
3 for teachers and 3 for students. In your opinion, what do you think?
Well, number 1 for teachers is keeping a student's focus, I imagine, or keeping them engaged.
Okay, yeah, that's a better way to put it.
I imagine...
Okay, so it's keeping the student engaged, number 1. Okay. What's number 2, biggest struggle for online teacher?
Assignments, maybe? How you're going to do assignments?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so how you'll assess your students and the type of homework you give.
Giving tests is going to be weird, a little weird, because obviously...
That could be an episode in itself, dude. Online cheating.
That.
Yep,
I mean, cheating has always been huge in schools, but I imagine how much easier it would be now that you're... I didn't even think about test taking and how you can adjust to that when every student has the world in front of their.
I just texted you that we'll talk about that as an episode, I think, because that is an interesting discussion about online cheating.
Cheating in general is an interesting topic.
It is, but online
it's changing the game.
But I will say, not to take the wind out of our sails or steal our future thunder of this episode, but I will say the easy solution for a difficult question is you change the way you assess your students and how you test them. That's really the short version of what how to adapt in an online environment, but there's a lot more you have to consider. But yeah, so cheating. So anyway, so let's recap though. So you said student engagement, so keeping the students engaged, assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's then your third thing? Third biggest challenge, you would think.
I imagine something to do with burnout, like we've recently talked about.
Okay, so just burnout from screen time and just
from screen time and from sort of that something about that lack of interaction in person, not fully giving the teacher what they need, but also it being sort of the same sort of level of physical requirement, So you sort of lack the, especially with, I guess, teachers of all ages. I imagine a good number of teachers enjoy the interaction with the students, and
I would say so.
a level of that is sort of taken away, but you still have the same level of responsibility and all that stuff. And I imagine that could increase burnout in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Not really getting as much out of the job as you used to.
Or you don't feel that you do.
Yeah,
right.
you're putting in the same amount.
Or more. Or a lot more.
Yeah.
All right. Those are your top three. I'll give you my top three. They're very different than yours. This is why I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
But it's good. I think it leads to an interesting discussion. So for me, I think the number one biggest challenge of online teaching is kind of like what you said, actually, which relates to burnout, is you're lacking that kind of personal connection with your students. And I think there is, I can tell you, being on both ends of the coin has taught classes in person and online, it's very different. So that would be my number one, is just like having like a more personalized, I'm keeping these here so we can recap later.
Sure.
So personalized, like just having your class be personalized and social. You don't have, like, one thing I mentioned with for my job, we actually meet with faculty and we do call a mid-semester assessment where the students submit a survey based on their thoughts of the class. And it's been really fascinating for me to read these, because I get to learn about what the students are saying, what they like, what they don't like about the courses, and that's kind of what led to this episode as well.
Your feelings ever get hurt?
Okay. Actually, I've only gotten a couple negative comments, but you always get one or two.
I mean, you can't be perfect.
You always get one or two. And one of the students years ago, they said I never responded to any of their emails, and it's like, I respond to all my students' emails, and you can message me anytime. And
did you actually go back and check? Because you can also just check to see if you responded.
But see, the thing is, I'm pretty sure I did, and I had reached out to that student. They just never were in the class. Like they never came, anyways. But yeah, so. But my whole point here is I've learned a lot from reading these mid-semester assessments from students and then meeting with the faculty and talking to them. It's been a really interesting learning experience. But what I've noticed is that there just isn't, one big thing is a lot of the students, unless the professor is really clear on the assignments, which you also mentioned, students are struggling right now because we don't have the same hallway conversations with them anymore. Like if you had a face-to-face class, you do your lecture, and then if your students had questions, sometimes they'd ask you after class, or well, professor, I'm not clear about this or that or whatever. Whereas now we don't really have that, right?
All right, I have a quick question. This is on topic, but off topic of what you're talking about.
Okay, sure.
If you're going to be teaching a class online, what do you think is a better way to do this? Do you think it's better to use like a virtual whiteboard and like where you're kind of sharing your screen kind of thing? Or do you think it's better to, in camera shot, have a physical whiteboard that you write on to kind of give you that old school feeling that you're used to?
Let me ask you a question, Jared. What is your purpose for using the whiteboard?
Oh, interesting. So if you're like lecturing, you might want to use a personal one. I don't know.
See, this is the thing, and I'm so thankful for the university that I work at. I can tell you, man, these last few months I've learned so much about pedagogy and teaching, and especially online teaching. With my job.
Yeah.
And the thing that is really fascinating about that, though, Jared, is what you ask. Do I use the whiteboard function on Zoom? Do I use a whiteboard behind me to do it? One, I think there's a few ways you can approach this question, right? Number one, you can approach it as, what is the teacher's tech skills? Are they able to actually use a whiteboard in Zoom? A lot of them can't. I've trained some of them on how to do it, right? And it's not that hard. You just have to play with it. I mean, with any technology, you just have to...
Oh, you don't have to, and you don't have to literally like write by dragging with a trackpad, do you?
I mean, you can. What a lot of faculty do is they'll have a tablet and then they can write with a stylus.
That's nice.
Yeah. Or you can actually do it with your phone. And I mean, it looks like you're writing with your finger, but to get your point across, it works. The difference is I have a faculty member I work with. She's an amazing teacher, and she teaches Arabic, and she does have a whiteboard behind her because she's teaching them how to write in Arabic. So I do think to some level, it depends what your purpose is.
So when she kind of has to, she's teaching them the language and how to write it.
Right.
So there's a higher level of importance on your writing being clear.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
Being clear and accurate. And
well, and I think
not
there's something
jiggly
too
and,
to seeing someone write it. Like
Yeah.
if I was learning how to write like Chinese or Chinese characters, kanji, Japanese characters, or a lot of my students are into calligraphy, so they can make these beautiful, characters. But it's amazing to me as a Westerner because we don't have characters, right? So for them, characters are not only a word, but they you can unpack so much meaning from characters. It's really amazing. But part of that is learning how to write them. And so that's why I would say in that regard, it might be smarter to have a whiteboard behind you versus if you're trying to point your students' attention to something or annotate or circle something, you can do that in an online format, and then it's easier for your students to see because that's a big consideration also is what can your students see? And so if you have a whiteboard behind you, you have to make sure you write really big so they can really see it clearly. Whereas if you do it on a computer, a laptop, whatever, within whatever teleconferencing platform you're using, Zoom, Top Hat, Teams, whatever, then the students see it more easily there. It depends.
I imagine most of, and I imagine you don't have a textbook for who you're teaching. But, you do?
I have textbooks for all my classes.
Are they all virtual textbooks?
I mean, they're PDFs, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I wonder if that's the case for like your standard American grade school.
No.
Like are they like telling their students to refer to page blah 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 and then
I'm not sure about that. I should have asked my niece and my nephews actually because they're all doing online.
Sure.
I should have asked before we did this episode because I'd be curious how they're actually doing that.
Does the teacher have like some sort of master version at least that has a PDF that he or she can use in the class?
I think a lot of I don't know about the K through 12 systems as much, but I know higher ed a lot of faculty have been encouraged to use either open source or online resources that students can more easily access. And I think a lot of courses in higher ed, at least, are structured.
Because now, since we're not going to an actual classroom, it kind of seems even more foolish to buy $300 textbooks.
Right. Well, it's foolish in any regard if the faculty doesn't use it, in my opinion.
That's true.
But I would say that the biggest key with online learning is if your students have a PDF, make sure if you can, it's a PDF where you can search and edit things, because if you upload a PDF where it's more of like it was an image that was converted to a PDF, you can't always I think there's something to being able to interact with the PDF because when I read, I have some books in front of Jared and I right now, when I read, there's something different to me of the process of reading on a page versus through a screen. And if it's through a screen, I like to be able to mark stuff up. Not that I guess I'm weird about that. I don't mark up my paper books as much, but that's what I like about the online is I can mark it up like crazy. I can highlight stuff. If I'm teaching, I can copy paste stuff into like a PowerPoint or
it's easier to find stuff too.
Right. Exactly.
I remember there was something about blah blah blah. And you just type
Control F and you're
blah,
good
blah,
to go.
blah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So have you not done your 3 yet?
I've gotten one. Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've
done one.
Yeah. So we're talking about right now teachers and their kind of top 3 challenges. So I would say the biggest challenge is teaching in an environment that's, especially if you teach an asynchronous class where you're not doing any lectures with the students, all of your communication is via email or via the learner management system.
Doesn't that go along with the first one though? Just not being in person?
Yes, I'm recapping.
Oh, I see.
I'm recapping. Okay. So that's the first one for me. The second one though leads into that with the learner management system or LMS. An LMS, basically, for those of you who don't know, it's basically a website where teachers can post all of their materials. They can upload readings, link videos, upload lectures, have quizzes, have the grade book. It's all in just one centralized place.
We use it at my company, or at least that's what they call it, LMS, for like the corporate training stuff.
Yep. Yeah. It's a learner management system. Yeah. And so like a lot of universities use like Canvas. Blackboard is another one. Desire to Learn or D2L. There's a bunch of different systems. Moodle is another one.
Moodle, yeah.
And so the thing though about an LMS is that if you are, especially, I don't mean to sound ageist, but this is just what I've seen in my work, is a lot of the older faculty, they haven't really worked with a learner management system to the level that a lot of younger faculty have. And so they've had a lot of difficulty navigating that throughout the pandemic and learning how to use it, how to upload files, how to label things, how to link things.
And what I've noticed too is older people in general, and once again, broad generalization, I love all the old people. they're less willing to just like click around to find stuff out, because I think there's more concern that they're going to mess something up, or like do some irreparable something that they're not going to figure out how to go back from.
And sometimes that can happen, but it's usually pretty rare.
But like me, like I'll just go into the settings and see what happens.
Right. You and I both usually. I mean, and I do that now for work all the time. I'll just go into Canvas and look through stuff and play with stuff. And how can I link this? How can I
like
do
what
that?
happens if I like something I don't even know? Like what happens if I switch this? See what happens.
Right. Exactly. But I think the learner management system is another huge difficulty for teachers. And if you don't know how to manage it, and sadly, a lot of the teachers in K through 12, from what I've heard, at least from teacher friends of mine, is a lot of them have not had proper training, and they don't have the proper support and the proper funding at schools to provide help. I mean, that's literally my job, is I help faculty with their online learner management system.
And I've used Moodle back in the day. And I guess I've used LMS too, and I can imagine. I mean, it's easy for me, I guess, because I'm really just the end user kind of thing. But there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and there's a lot of stuff in the background that it's like I can imagine it being a lot to learn how to actually properly upload stuff and do all that.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. So I think the learner management system is a big burden for teachers. And my last one.
So is that a learner management system? That's also sort of like do they take tests on learner management systems like I would do like a corporate training kind of thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's quizzes.
So you can like program a test into.
Yep. Yeah. You can program a quiz function or an assignment where they have to upload or whatever, discussion boards.
And it's like blah, blah, blah is passing. And
right.
Okay.
And then my last one, which is kind of related to learner management system, is the different applications that you can use and are available, because there are so many nowadays. It's hard to know where to begin and where to end.
Applications like what? Just all
like different websites. Yeah, different
applications?
websites you can use that have different functions.
Do you know about Wolfram Alpha? Big fan.
I've heard of it, but what is it?
It's like a math science thing where you can put in formulas and equations and stuff like that, and it'll
give you the answers.
Yeah, but it'll also give you like show
the work.
They'll show the work.
Oh, cool! That is awesome. But so what apps to use? Because there are so many of them, and a lot of teachers who have never taught online, if they're not familiar with them, I feel like it's a big challenge because they feel very overwhelmed.
Knowing which one to pick, to the point it's like where it's like, is it, what do they call it, like decision paralysis or something like that?
Yeah, you're just overwhelmed. I mean, just the amount of apps that are that you can integrate into Canvas, it's pretty overwhelming. I've just skimmed through the list, and it feels like it just goes on forever and forever.
Let's actually talk about just some teaching apps, or even just some video apps, because even at my job, I have like 3 or 4 different ways that I can find myself in a meeting. So
Teams is probably one of them.
Teams is one of them. Skype is probably the main one. Teams is probably number 2.
Okay, and then Zoom.
But then still sometimes people use WebEx.
Okay.
WebEx is kind of old, but usually the older people. From what I hear, it's just a meeting software.
Right.
From what I hear, just in general, usually it's the older people that use it, because WebEx used to be the popular one, but Skype replaced it.
Okay.
And so,
gotcha. Okay.
And then that's all I can think of, actually.
Okay.
What else can you think of?
I mean, there's Top Hat, which is kind of like Zoom.
Never heard of Top Hat.
I use Voov with my students in China, which is basically
one.
Yep. There's a couple different Chinese ones. Well, the one I use the most is Zoom. So I think the one I'm most comfortable with is probably Zoom, because I just use it the most, and I think I understand it the best.
I see. The one I'm most comfortable with and use the most is probably Skype.
Okay.
Zoom is easy for me, but I've never actually had to been the host. Granted, I bet you I could figure it out.
Oh, you for sure could. It's
breakout rooms and all that stuff. I'm sure I could figure it out, even though I've never. I've been the participant, but I've never had to set.
Yeah,
it up.
It's not difficult. There are some little settings you have to kind of really scroll through, but you can find them. Yeah.
I like the idea of Teams, but there is a lot of functionality in Teams to the point where, even for me, it's a little overwhelming. Like I can have obviously you can have multiple different I don't know, because it is confusing, because like I've gone to meetings, but then they still are like logged,
Right.
and then like I don't know, and then like there's also I can see all my cloud files in a certain spot, and there's just a lot going on in Teams, but it seems very powerful and useful.
Yeah.
But that actually seems like I need some training if I want to
Right.
actually use it properly.
Well, there's tons of functionality within Teams. I would say I probably only know a third of what it can do. It's interesting though. My boss. She's actually getting like training, and apparently Teams is, I think we've talked about it on the pod before, we mentioned it, they're hoping to come out with breakout rooms in Teams, and they're doing all sorts of different stuff. So they're adding even more. So yeah, I think not only the apps, but understanding what you can do with them, but this also is related to that question I asked you beforehand, Jared, which is what is the purpose? So as a teacher, if I'm moving online right now, that is the question I'm going to be asking. I'm going to write that on my forehead. I'm going to put that on my computer and as a sticky note. What is my purpose? Not because I'm having an existential crisis, but because I want to be very methodological.
Chat's mantra.
I can't even talk today, right? But because
methodology.
Thank you. I'm being very
methodical.
Thank you. Yes, to really just think about, because the last thing you want to do as an online teacher is give your students work that will give them a lot more technical difficulties, take more time away. You also want to make sure as the teacher, you can kind of understand the workload for you in terms of how long it will take you to grade, give them feedback, do all of that good stuff.
Speaking of which, I think another challenge for teachers, especially grade school, is students just not showing up. Like, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, that was a big issue. I don't know if it still is or not now, but
Right.
where like students just wouldn't show up, and there's not much a teacher can do.
Right. Well, I hate to say it, but that's on the students and the students' parents or family.
For sure.
you know?
But a lot of from what I've heard, I have a friend teacher, and then I saw a news article about it. These teachers take it upon themselves to try to find ways to find out where the kid is, even though it is, it's kind of hard. It isn't really their responsibility.
Right. Well, I think a lot of teachers do really care about their students.
Sure, of course.
I don't
yeah.
think it matters if it's online or in person.
Yeah.
And so that's why they do that. But I think the other issue is if you're teaching online, I think there are ways you can design and format your courses where your students will have to participate. And so then they either have to show up or their grades suffer, or you give them asynchronous assignments that they have to do. So I think the good thing, though, about what all of this online teaching and learning has done, it's made people really think about how we learn, how we present information, how we teach it. And I hope that we'll continue to look at it and try to learn from this even more.
Speaking of participating, how has your 200 plus person class been going?
Luckily, I have gotten 3 teaching assistants to help me with the course.
Good. You thought you'd get 1 or 2, right?
Yep. So I got 3. So what I'm going to do is 2 of them will be.
But that's still like what, 70-ish students per?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Last year.
Yep.
Yeah, probably 70-ish students per. 60 to 70.
60, or a little bit over 60. Yeah. But the nice thing is what I'm going to do is 2 of the graduate assistants are going to be helping with I'm going to break it up. So half of the class will be doing actually in-person activities where they'll be talking and playing some games and stuff. The whole goal is to just get them speaking lots of English. That's really my goal here, because I'm not there to really see and monitor what's going on, and I can't give them real-time feedback. I just want to give them an environment where they all are speaking in English.
Do these separate TA sessions all happen at the same time?
So this is what's going to happen. So this is what it will look like. So on Monday morning, 100 of my students, as crazy as this sounds, 100 of my students will be attending my virtual lecture, and I'll be teaching them some idioms, some phrases. We'll do some pronunciation practice where I model how you say things. Like last week we did SH and S. So those sounds. So sh and s.
Then you have 100 students on mic at once.
They're not on mic.
Oh.
They're muted. Don't worry, okay. Jared. I mute them. They're muted. But yeah, so we do some pronunciation activities there. And then what the other half of the class is doing while they're not in the live lecture, they will actually be in 2 physical classrooms doing activities, having conversations.
And this is at the same time.
Correct.
So you couldn't if you wanted to pop into.
I cannot, but
Okay.
that's what my teaching assistants are
Right,
for. They're
okay.
they're going to be my boots on the ground, so to speak, and they will be the ones giving them feedback, helping the students, and then telling me, kind of reporting back to me what's been going on.
Do you feel like
there.
a team, the four of you guys? I mean, obviously you're the leader.
Not
but...
yet, because we haven't had our first team meeting. I'm hoping will be on Monday night.
Okay.
That's the other thing that's difficult. It's difficult to coordinate things with the 13-hour time difference.
Is this? Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we made it work, but
Right.
it's gonna suck.
That's an hour-long podcast or hour and a half long podcast.
Yeah.
It's not coordinating 200 students.
That's true.
And answering questions about assignments and blah blah blah.
Is this going to be your first time being a like a boss?
Yep.
Oh man.
Yep. Well, no. It's the first time for me having teaching assistants working under me, but I supervised a computer lab in grad school, and I had undergrads that I was responsible for.
Okay.
So no, it's actually not.
Okay.
But this will be the first time where I will be giving someone directions on running a classroom that I will not physically be in. So that is very different, for sure. But anyway,
you have to be very good at giving direction.
Exactly. But once again, Jared, this goes back to the being really clear on what you're saying and what your message is. You know, especially when all my teaching assistants their English is fantastic, but it's not their first language. So I have to be very clear with what I say, how I say it, what the meaning is, and making that very clear, which is also, I think, a big challenge a lot of teachers have been facing now with their students. And what I've been seeing is that a lot of students don't fully understand sometimes the purpose of the assignments. Sometimes students are like, well, why do I have to comment on...
Easier to make the purpose clear in person?
Well, once again, in person, you have those hallway conversations. You have the, oh, teacher, by the way, as they're walking out of class, I wasn't sure about this, and you can just,
see, now you're starting to bleed into challenges for students.
Yep.
That
was the plan.
You're welcome to.
That was the plan.
Do your top three first.
So, okay, top three challenges.
Or should I go first because you're more experienced than me?
Doesn't matter. I don't think it really matters.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to persuade your answer, so I do want you to go first. Yeah. I'm going to take some notes here.
I'd say one, it would probably be just staying focused. It's like keeping your interest level up. For a lot of students, I'd say probably up until like grad school, I'd say social interaction is still a very key part of the education process.
Is that like your number two, or is that just you're adding on to the staying focused?
That's the next one.
Okay.
I'd say the lack of social interaction takes away from... Maybe they're kind of connected, because I think maybe... Granted, no, I don't know if they're connected. I just think that is a part of...
I do think you could argue they're connected, actually.
Sure.
I would say. But to some degree.
Sure, but I think you can also leave them disconnected,
right.
too. And then I think as challenge is probably, like, being able to speak up, like feeling empowered to speak up.
Yeah.
If someone's already not empowered to speak up, I'm sure they're even less so now.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that.
It's very
Jared.
easy for me not to speak up on Skype, even if I like have something to say, and I'll go to say it, but someone will interrupt me, or not interrupt me.
Yeah.
Not even interrupt
Just
me,
the
but
timing,
they'll say
yeah.
it first.
Right.
It's very easier for me to be like, all right, I'll just not say that instead of like say it after or whatever.
Right. These are really good. I really like these three, Jared. And actually, I'm trying to think of some other ones. I might actually. You might have covered my three, maybe, but I'm going to see if I can think of some other ones, because these are actually really good. Not that your other ones weren't. Your other ones were also good, but I think mine were just very different, coming from a very different perspective, whereas I think these might be a little bit more aligned. I would say a number one big challenge for students, not only staying focused, but I think a lot of students have had the challenge with, and this is kind of related, but to staying disciplined. I can tell you, I mean, granted, I'm not trying to make excuses for myself, because really it's just me not, managing my time better. But I've been having some difficulties with the current course I'm in, where what I should be doing is just pick a couple days a week and just delegate an hour to just going on Canvas, reading through the materials. That's what I really need to do. But I think if teachers set the course up in a way where it's very clear what and when the student should be doing stuff, I think it is a little bit easier to stay disciplined, because you have a clearer path of what you're supposed to do and knowing when you need to do it. But whether you stay on that path and have enough personal accountability and integrity to do that is a different story. So that's my first one.
That's something I've had to work on too, even with work, is just staying disciplined too. It's sort of easier to stay disciplined working when people are all around you and they can see what's up on your screen, or they can see, that's clear whether you're working or not. So now that there's no one, granted, no one's hovering over me like, are you working or not? But no one like sort of around. The idea of staying disciplined was definitely something I had to work on a lot at the beginning. It's still an ongoing thing, but I definitely think I've made a lot of progress there. Just being able to sit down and work all day when I have access to my own home and I'm chilling, kind of.
Which I'm glad you mentioned that. That leads me to my second one, which is finding the proper balance between study and life. Because, and now granted, students only have some control over this because, if your teachers assign you a bunch of work,
sure,
you have, but finding a balance, I think, between, when you need to study, when you shouldn't be studying, how long, and
I
also
wonder if parents are more concerned about their students or their kids like studying a lot because they're not at school.
Well, and once again, I think you finding a balance. Let me add to that one, kind of,
or
finding a balance,
school, I guess,
and also setting boundaries. I think can be challenges.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, especially my colleagues who have kids who are doing school online right now.
I couldn't imagine my parents if I had to do virtual school. Right. My parents were pretty intense school wise. I could only imagine if I were all at home together, that would be interesting.
Right. But that's the reality for a lot of people now, Jared, So finding a balance and setting those boundaries of, but that kind of
that
relates
almost seems like more of a challenge for the parent. That seems like I think it's probably easy for
But I'm thinking more of college kids. So the parents aren't quite as much in the picture, but you're right.
Because I feel like for
kids.
grade school kids, I feel like there definitely needs to be a boundary for the parent.
Right.
I mean, we've seen these videos on social media of parents budging in on us on classes, yelling at the teacher, or just walking in the background naked or something.
Right. Going to take their morning deuce and Oh man, but so staying disciplined, I think, is the top challenge for students. Also, then leading into that, finding a balance, setting boundaries. And oh man, I had my third one, and for some reason it's escaping me right now. I'm trying to think. You're good. I'm trying to think of where it was. Staying disciplined, finding a balance, setting boundaries. What was the other one? Let me read yours again and see if yours will help. But so I would agree with you though, Jared. Jared said staying focused is a big challenge for students.
That's always a challenge for me, period.
Yep. The social interaction or lack thereof, definitely. Yeah, and this is an interesting one though too, Jared, the not being able to speak up, because I think online learning, I remember mine now, but I want to talk about this point now. So not being able to speak up, this is an interesting one, because I agree with you that there is a feeling of I don't have to speak up.
Yeah.
Right? And I will say this though, dude, I don't know why, but when I was in school, I always had this kind of, I don't know if urge is the right term or what, but I always had this kind of, or maybe just desire to speak up. I wanted to.
Were you one of these kids? Me. I know the answer.
Sometimes. In German class,
like,
for
all right,
sure.
We need someone else.
Right. In German class, for sure. I definitely was. In grad school, here and there, in undergrad, I mean, we had some classes together. I feel like I participated, but I wasn't one of those, always me type of guys. But
see, I'm the opposite. I'm like, I don't need to say anything. I'm always like, I don't need to say anything.
Right. But the whole point here is that I do think students now are able to speak up in different ways. So now if they have the courage or they feel comfortable enough to do that, that's a different conversation. But like I know with me, a lot of my students participate a lot in the chat. So they'll write questions instead of coming on the microphone. And so you have these different ways of and you have to interact with your students.
So maybe that actually might contradict my point a little bit.
Well,
in that way, it kind of makes it a little easier for everyone to be able to speak up at the same time,
Right. But I think you were thinking more maybe not being able to speak up is the wrong way to write it, but maybe a better way to frame it would be you don't necessarily have that urgency where you feel the need to verbally.
It's easier to stifle yourself.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And this leads me now. I'm glad I went through yours because I was hoping this would, kind of bring back my memory. And my last one is autonomous learning. What I mean by this is that a lot of students nowadays, if they're learning online, I don't care if it's K through 12, I don't care if it's higher ed. There's a lot of just autonomous learning happening where students have to do a lot of the learning on their own. Now, teachers can do their lectures, they can have their online classes, but a lot of it now, it's different because you don't have the class time set aside where you're all in a room together reading a book for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. You're not all together in a classroom writing a short story or doing whatever you need to do in school. You're not all together working through math problems. So there's a few different things about autonomous learning, and some of these are related to my first 2 points, which were staying disciplined and finding a balance and setting boundaries. Because with autonomous learning, you need to, one, kind of have an idea of how you learn the best. Some people are good note takers. This might sound crazy, Jared, but I like to talk through stuff kind of when I'm learning stuff. I'm
a big note taker too. It's actually at work I have like this little small notebook that I carry around with me just to take notes on and stuff. And what I've actually found kind of surprising is that I probably use it less than I did when I was there, but not that much less. I still will like write down stuff when I'm on the phone. And, that's still the easiest way for me to like remember sort of the tasks that I have to do.
I mean, I got some notes from work right over there.
Yeah.
So I feel you
and
for
so
sure.
It was actually kind of surprising me that I still find a need to do it that way rather than type it down or so. I don't even know what else I would do. So I guess
right. Yeah. So I think the autonomous learning though is a big thing, and I remember I did have a conversation with my niece a little while back, and I asked her how's school going, and she said, I don't really like it right now because I feel like I'm doing a lot of the learning on my own, and she's right.
Well, when you don't have the interaction with the people in person, it takes away all the fun parts of school.
Well, and the co-learning is different.
Work.
Right. And the co-learning feels different when you see someone on Zoom in a breakout room. That's totally different than sitting here like you and I are doing, having a conversation. You can read the other person's body language, their facial expressions better. It's just a whole different type of interaction. And so I think a lot of students who are good and I think a lot of this comes from their parents. If that come from a household where their parents are also disciplined or they know how to set a schedule and stick to a schedule. That's one thing I'm really trying to improve on is sticking to a schedule.
Braden eats breakfast at 8:00.
Right.
He has baseball at 9:30. Then he has swimming practice at noon, and then we have a light lunch at 12:32.
Right. But if you're in college, you don't have that. And I just think back to, some of my habits in college and graduate school weren't the best habits, if I'm being honest with myself.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Not the best study habits, procrastinating a little bit too much. And nowadays, I think with these students that have everything online, I would highly advise against procrastinating because if you come across any technical difficulties, the amount of emails I've gotten from my students saying, teacher, and they email me, I told them, a week in advance, your assignment's due on Sunday night. You need to turn it in at Sunday night. I have 198 of you. As much as I would love to be able to watch all of your videos over and over again and really get to know you, the reality is we don't have that much time. And so you need to turn in these assignments on time. And for some students, if they procrastinate and then they come up with a technical difficulty, it puts the teacher in a rough spot because it's like, you have two options. You either allow it and say, well, I understand, because I do understand there are technical difficulties, but it's like you had all week to submit this assignment, and how much wiggle room can I give you? And I understand we're in unprecedented times. I know we say this a lot, and I sound like a broken record saying that, but it does have some validity.
That's been something that I've thought a lot about during this quarantine time. When the idea of technical difficulties, I've spent a lot of time wondering, was that a technical difficulty, or were you just late to the meeting? Was that a technical difficulty, or could you just not finish the job in the time allotted?
Right.
Like, it was convenient that you...
I have to say, though, I have way more respect for people who are transparent about it. Like, not to spill the tea from any of my colleagues, But I had a meeting with a couple of my colleagues, and we all had some tasks we were supposed to do, and they were both honest, and they said, look, we didn't have time to do the reading. So we just scheduled a meeting for later next week. And I had so much respect for that, so much more respect for both of them being honest about it than if they would have made some excuse.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
I think there is, and that's another thing, is transparency is a big issue right now, I think.
It's so easy not to be transparent.
Right, but I think right now it's it's more important than ever, especially on the
Yes.
teacher side, to be very transparent, but also for students, because I had a really good consultation with a faculty member at the university where I work, and she had said she even did like a mental health checkup on her students, basically just sent out an email and said, hey, I would like all of you to just give me a quick, I'm doing okay. Not only with the course, but just with everything that's happening. And and when she said that to me, I thought that was so genius. Just because that's another thing is reaching out to your students right now is so important.
And I think teachers, maybe they do, maybe they don't realize that they already do that. Like when they're in person, just not in email form, obviously.
Right.
But they are sort of doing these sort of, especially grade school, like doing these mental notes of how their students are doing, not just grade wise, but just as humans.
Right.
And so I think that is I think it's great for like a mental health wise, but also to it makes sense.
On that end, though, I would also argue that it's really important for administrators to do the same with their teachers. Because I think a lot of teachers feel very overwhelmed. They have put so much effort and time into their courses, and some of that has come to fruition, some of that has not, and some of that the students have not realized and that's kind of why I wanted to do this episode, Jared, to shine a light that not all teachers, but a lot of teachers have put in so much more work, since all of this has started. And I think that they really deserve, number one, they deserve a pay raise, if we're going to be honest. I mean, just the amount of hours and time and extra work, I'm going to give it to everybody straight. They deserve a pay raise.
Yet another underappreciated essential worker.
Right. They deserve a pay raise. But I also think that parents need to be more understanding of the situation, which is also why I wanted to talk about some of these. I don't think we have many listeners who are parents, but maybe we have a couple out there, and this would provide them with a perspective of, what it's like to be a teacher and trying to manage the difficulty of navigating technologies you've never used before, and then trying to use that with your own teaching, the way you teach, your personality as a teacher, and some teachers honestly are really struggling, but they are trying their best. But then we also have the other side of the coin where a lot of students are struggling right now too. They don't feel heard, like you said, with, not, their voices, either not being able to just have those regular conversations with their peers and their teachers. But also, I feel like you can definitely kind of just be a lurker in an online class.
Yeah. And it's made me a lot easier to be a lurker in meetings at work.
Right. And it was funny. I had a meeting a couple weeks back where it was, I think, 6 or 7 of us. It was 5 of us in one meeting. And everyone was talking. And I just felt like they were saying stuff that I would have said, but I wasn't going to add anything. So it's like, why do I need to add? But I'm usually, me, our listeners, I think at this point know me somewhat where, I'm a pretty talkative guy and I don't mind adding my 2 cents here and there. And but in this meeting, I didn't really speak very much. And my colleague, she even messaged me, bless her heart. She's like, "Hey, are you doing all right? You didn't talk very much in the meeting." I just said, honestly, like, there's not much I need to add. I agree with everything. I added my 2 cents here. I had one idea I put forward, and that was about it. But it is easy then to kind of feel like you're a more passive participant and not an active one. Whereas what we know in education is that when learners when they perceive their education as them taking a part in it actively, they tend to do better. They tend to care more. They tend to have more enthusiasm. And so, I mean, it makes sense. If you think that your voice, your ideas don't really matter and you can just sit here, and that's quote unquote okay because there's no negative consequences, it's different, it's very different.
Yeah. I think a lot of what you said applies to work too. I relate to a lot of that.
Yeah. Just the whole online environment has just brought about different.
And at the end of the day, the student, Like I'm almost kind of just like the student, and I'm just giving my assignments to.
That's true.
Like the
That's
teacher
true.
who's the company. You know?
Right. Your grades just come out in a monetary
Yeah,
format,
exactly.
and potentially if you do good work, you can, move up.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's really important now more than ever to be more understanding of what teachers and students are going through. I mean, we have just the right now, we don't know what's happening politically, especially in the States. Things are kind of all over the place with the pandemic. There's just so much extra stress and other issues. And then you add on giving, forcing your students and your teachers to teach in a completely different way than they really never have before. I mean, yes, there have been online classes and online programs, but that in the past was more higher ed, and
Right. It's never been the norm.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this. I remember you were telling me that when you used to teach the Russian children English, you'd have almost like a Nickelodeon cartoon voice.
Oh God, yeah.
Yep. Has that? How's your voice? Now, obviously, you're teaching adults now,
Right. Well, they're 18 years old.
right, but you don't have to go up 3 octaves.
Right. Hello, kids. How are you today? Yeah, I didn't have to.
How does your speaking, your voice or whatever, or the way you communicate change in that setting?
Not too much. Although I will say I speak a lot more slowly.
Okay.
I speak a lot slower. Just because I want to make sure they can hear me and understand me, and there's also a bit of lag.
Yeah, there's a chance that there might be a glitch somewhere, and so that,
Right.
if you talk fast, it would be easier to miss a word or something.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't really change,
but you don't have to be more presentery to keep
Right.
an 18-year-old
Right.
that engaged.
Right. And well, that kind of brings up the idea of what I like to call kind of teacher talk, where you do change not only the register, but also, the vocabulary you use. So do you use more simple, generally I try to have much shorter sentences.
Do you smile? Do you keep a smile on your face?
I try to. Yeah,
Okay.
I try to. And it feels kind of, the first couple times you do it feels
fake,
weird
yeah.
because it technically is a fake smile. But you also have to understand you're trying to harbor an environment in which your students feel comfortable. They like one comment
you have to
I saw.
present the environment that you want your students to give you.
Yeah, you want to be friendly, you want to be approachable, and I
Yeah.
can tell you the mid-semester assessments I saw through my work. It was really fascinating to see that a lot of the most positive comments were related to I feel comfortable to send my professor emails, to communicate with them, where, we've talked about it on the podcast before, where some people feel like they're quote unquote bothering someone by sending them a message. And I think some students also feel if they ask their professor a question because they don't understand something, that it will make the professor feel like their students are either stupid or they didn't learn the material or they're lazy or whatever. To anybody listening to this right now who's a student, reach out to your professors, reach out to your teachers, because I can tell you as a teacher, I have so much more appreciation for my students who do ask for help and that do understand things that they were having difficulty with.
Because you recognize it takes a level of
courage.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does. I mean, no one. It's an uncomfortable feeling, Jared, admitting you don't know something.
Yeah, no one wants to come off as stupid, but especially to the teacher.
Right. And
Who's
I think
grading
the
you.
students who tend to do that, I hate to say it, but I think they care
better
more
students.
about they care more about their education, and they tend to be the better students.
Yeah, I could see that.
So yeah, but in an online format, it's just a whole different way we do it. It just really is. And so it's fascinating to think about how this will change the future of education in a lot of ways, because it's going to.
Well,
without a doubt.
when we talked about college, we talked a little bit about. At least I did, about destigmatizing online college a little bit, and if it'll be maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little more accepted as like on a similar level to if you go to U of M online versus U of M in Ann Arbor, But now that we've had this conversation, I think there really is something to being in person. Like you can't just because you can teach online doesn't mean you're getting the same experience.
Right. That's a good point. They are very, very different experiences, and I think what we need to learn is what are the good things from the online experience that we should continue doing, when it's, when we can do more face-to-face in-person teaching again.
I wonder what like science classes for colleges that are. I guess most colleges are probably in person.
What, right now?
Now that I think about it, most colleges are probably in person.
Well, it depends. Yeah, if you're doing the lab, well, that's the other good thing.
So you can't, like, there are a lot of classes where you need to be there.
Right. A lot of the lab classes, from my understanding, are in person at a lot of places. Thankfully, they do have some protocols set up to try to less the risk. They have like a health screener at a lot of universities and different protocols.
Albion put out a post on, I think it was LinkedIn the other day, saying that it's been going pretty well for them.
Yeah. They've been doing a good job. I have to say, kudos. Shout out to
we shat on them at the beginning.
We did.
Look,
right?
We don't trust these kids.
But hey, I'm happy to say, I'm happy to admit I was wrong about that, and I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see that. Yeah, I think the only time it's a bad thing to be wrong is when you can't own up to it and learn from it.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like I said, how this will influence the future of education, learning, and teaching.
Yeah.
It'll really be fascinating. But Jared, speaking of fascinating...
yes, speaking
of fascinating, we could talk about this all day.
All I was say was, I feel like this could somehow, like, if there, obviously we're going to go back to, the goal is to go back to teaching in person. That's ideal for most people. But like, if there is like someone that's sick, or like, could it be possible that instead of just missing that class for the day, they could just log in and have a camera set up in the back of a classroom or something?
Right. Well, if they're sick, I think they should be resting and not.
You can't lie. You can lie in bed and listen to it. You don't have to interact.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, fair enough.
You lazy. The kids these days, so lazy.
But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what will happen. It'll be really interesting.
Let's talk about the song of the pod.
Let's do it. Yeah. Oh shoot! Here, let me pull it up. This was the only bad thing about moving the keyboard over here.
Chad decided to move his keyboard because he made some mistakes last episode. And so this song is called how would you say it? Ninjin Isu?
I think so, yeah. Ningen Isu, I think.
Ningen Isu. So it's not Jin, but Gin.
I think so, yeah. I think it's Ningen. I could be wrong, though. I would assume if it was Ninjin, it would be with a J. But I'm not sure. 1 second here, apparently.
And they are
a Japanese group.
Yes.
Japanese group.
They're heavy metal, and they're from Hirosaki, formed in 1987. They've been around for a while.
They've definitely been around.
Not surprising because, they look like middle-aged men.
Right, there we go.
And they do have they played at Ozfest Ozfest in 2013.
Oh, nice. Okay. I didn't know Ozfest was still going in 2013. That's awesome. But yeah, so this song, though, is called Heartless Scat. And it's quite a journey. I think the whole song, when I think of this song, it's just a journey.
So we listened to it once, and it starts kind of slow, and then.
Is that too loud? Is that okay?
Can you turn it a little bit? Just I feel like I can't really hear myself talk. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
It is a journey, but we went into it not even realizing it was going to be a journey.
Right. And I didn't even know it was it's an 8-minute long song, which I have a lot of respect for any artist or group that puts out a song, especially that can keep you captivated for 8 full minutes,
I love an 8-minute song too.
But yeah, you're right though.
Going to town on the old school dong. Yeah,
the gong.
Not dong.
Yeah. So what's interesting though is 2 of the guys in the band, they have these more traditional Japanese robes on.
Yes.
One of them has like white face makeup and black lipstick. He looks kind of like a creepy ghost. I mentioned the first time we watched it, he kind of looks like the singer from Rammstein. I get those vibes from him.
And he's just got like a creepy vibe. It's clearly
menacing vibe, I would say, kind of in a way. But then the guitarist and singer, he looks so interesting because he's this older Japanese dude.
He just looks like a dad.
Yeah, but he looks kind of like what you'd see in like a traditional, like almost like anime of and he's got like the little round glasses and a goatee and a ponytail, or not a goatee, sorry, just a stash.
But he just looks like he looks like he's like in his mid-40s. No, he probably looks like he's 50.
50s probably, I would say 50s or above. Yeah, long gray hair,
But he's got such a presence.
He does. The whole group does.
Yeah, that's
But it's so
true.
funny, though, because their drummer is dressed in like a Hawaiian or tropical style shirt and some black jeans
He
or
looks
something.
like an Elvis impersonator in Vegas.
Right. Without the super long sideburns.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so this song, it starts off with like it's like almost a 2-minute intro, right? It's pretty long. And it just, the whole song is a journey with all these different riffs.
And it does make some like it makes some sharp changes in sort of like it almost feels like a different chapter in the story.
Oh, definitely. And actually, here, let's turn this up a little bit, then we can hear it a little bit louder. But yeah, and it's really interesting. I wish we knew what they were saying. That's the one bad thing is we have no idea what they're saying, but it's just epic.
We were joking around. We're probably not going to go to the whole song, but we were joking around at one point where he was just repeating the same thing over and over again, and we were like, "Oh, he's probably scatting."
Right.
But then that's before we even realized the name of the song, which is "Heartless Scat." And we're like, "Oh, was he scatting, or was he saying like a word over and over again?"
Right. Yeah, it's quite the video. It's cool. They have the kanji below too.
Yeah. And where do you think they're, like in the Japanese countryside or something like that is probably the vibe?
Yeah, I think they're, Oh, definitely. They're like out in the forest and walking on a beach. Yeah, oh man, this song is something else. It's really awesome. Ningen Isu, Heartless Scat. It will definitely take you on a musical journey. Great guitar riffs as well. I would say this would be a good like workout song too. If you're like gonna go like lift weights or for a run, this would be an epic song. But also check out the music video. It's definitely something to watch. Very entertaining. If you enjoy heavy guitar riffs and like just kind of different changes of pace, this song is definitely for you. So check it out on our YouTube channel, Song of the Pod playlist. It's hard to not just headbang with this, right?
I know.
But yeah, so check it out, our Song of the Pod playlist, Untranslatable Podcast, Ningen Isu, Heartless Scat, and be ready for a very epic journey. That's for sure.
Yes. All right, Chad, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Oh, it sounds like it's time, Jared.
Yeah.
Time to wrap it up. So today we talked about some of the challenges for online teachers and also online students. Just to recap, let's recap our six challenges for teachers and 6 challenges for students. Jared mentioned one of the biggest difficulties for teachers would be having the student engagement, which actually, Jared, I think a solution to this, I also wanted to provide some solutions. So I guess here's the time to do it, So
Please.
All of our listeners, this is why you got to listen to the whole episode, baby. all 130 or 1 hour and 30 minutes or whatever. Anyways, Jared mentioned student engagement as one of the difficulties, which I think to solve that would be having a lot of different interactive activities, different, videos, having them, do things where they're talking, they're discussing things, they're writing things, reading things. So different modalities of information and stuff like that. Jared also mentioned the difficulty for teachers is the assignments. So, what types of assignments do you give? Also, we briefly mentioned, cheating on tests and quizzes is a big one. I think that deserves its own episode because that's a really, really big one. And then also burnout, which I agree. I mean, just sitting at a computer I feel like it was different when we would go into an office or classroom where when you sit in front of a computer, you're not just sitting in front of the computer for your job all day long, right? You might go into a meeting room where you're having a meeting, so there's some breakup. Whereas now it's a long day filled with, I can tell you, I wake up and I'm usually on the computer at 7:30 or 8 a.m., usually until 6, 7, 8 at night a lot of times, doing different stuff.
And now I have to make a point, I have a desktop computer, but I sort of make a point to leave that desk because it's like this like a surrounding of screens in front of me. I have my laptop, and my laptop plugs into the monitor. Then next to that is my desktop computer, and then I do have a laptop too. Granted, I usually don't have that open at the time. But now I make a point to be like, all right, I'm done with the day. Yeah, I could, I guess, be on my computer. I'm still going to be on a computer, but I have to be on this laptop just so I'm not in this same sort of area now that is very connected to work for me.
Exactly. Definitely. So those were Jared's 3 challenges for teachers, and I agree with all of those. My 3 were, making a class more personable and social with your students can be a big challenge. The teachers need to reach out to their students a lot, have a good line of communication, and that's not easy for every teacher, and it does take extra time out of your day. So that's one big difficulty. It's not the same as just having that in-person interaction in class, for example, especially if you're teaching an asynchronous course where you're not having a live lecture with your students. All of your communication is online. So it's a very different way we've handled things, which leads me to the second biggest difficulty for teachers, which is managing a learner management system, especially if they are not experienced with it, if they don't really know how to use it, how to engage with it, interact with it, can be a major difficulty for teachers. And I mean, my only advice for this would just be you have to play around with it. I mean, there's really no other advice. Read up on it.
Get your hands dirty.
Exactly. And the last thing, too, is knowing which applications, software, tools to use for your online teaching. That can be very difficult. There are a lot of tools out there. You have a lot of businesses pushing you to, try this product, try that product. I went to a training for, I'll shout them out. I don't care. I went to a training for Perusal. Or Perusal, depending, which is it's a really useful. I guess I'm giving them a little bit of a plug here too, but it is a really useful annotation tool where you can and basically, Jared, the nuts and bolts of it. There's a lot of functionality to it, but the nuts and bolts of it are you can post a text, your students can comment on it, write on it, annotate it, but you see it as a class, which is awesome. So you can see what numerous students aren't sure about, and so it presents things in a very interesting way, and reading collaboratively, annotating, discussing, all of that is great. But I attended a webinar to learn more about it, and obviously I did learn more about it, or I wouldn't be able to tell you that, but a lot of it was them just trying to push the product, sell the product.
Sure, of course.
Tell us how great the product is. It's like, look, if I'm already here and I want to learn about it, I already think the product might be good. So you don't need to sell it to me. So that's one of my complaints, right? And I get why they do on a business standpoint.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like
sometimes,
right? And do that. I feel like there are different. Kind of stay in your lane, right? There's a time when you should be pushing your product. I get that. But there's also another time where you're wasting my valuable time by pushing a product that I'm not going to buy personally, but I have a license through my work, so I'm going to use it. So you don't need to sell me the product.
Yeah, I already have it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing, but just also it, as you said, it can be very overwhelming with all of these different learning apps. What do I use? How do I use it? And comparing different ones, right? Like there are tons of different applications for video streaming. You can use Echo 360, MS Stream, Screencast-O-Matic, Camtasia.
I've never heard of
Zoom.
Okay,
you could use Skype. There's all these different options. You can use iMovie if you have a Mac computer. There's all these different ways you can, but you're doing the same thing essentially. You're recording a video or a lecture, right? So you have to be able to pick and choose. And I think really, although it is to some extent the teacher's responsibility, I really think that falls more on the administrators of the school to educate the teachers or have staff that teaches the teachers and helps them with this, because I don't think that should be something a teacher should be taking a ton of time out of their day in their schedule, deciding which apps to use. I think they do need to make those executive decisions, and it's important, but I think other people should be kind of helping them by knowing here are the best practices for this and for this and for this.
Teachers should be provided the best resources to do
Correct.
their job. They shouldn't have to actively be doing all the finding and buying while also teaching children.
Yep. 100%. So those are our difficulties for teachers. Now for students, Jared said, staying focused, 100%. It's difficult, especially if you're sitting in front of a screen, can be very difficult. And I would encourage teachers to find a way to have your students do things so they are getting up and moving. I had one of my colleagues, her daughter, their teacher had them do like a fun little, I don't know if they played Simon Says or what, but they had some fun kind of, their classmates were up and moving and they were kind of jumping around, which is good. I think just to expect children to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours in a day is unrealistic. Kids need to get up and move. They need to play. College is a little bit different. But for younger kids, K through 12, I think it's important for teachers to provide their students lots of different opportunities so their students can stay focused.
During some of our meetings, one of the higher-up bosses has hired her her yoga instructor to do like a desk yoga session for 10 minutes before meetings every now and again.
Yep, and that's great. I think that's an awesome idea. So staying focused was number one for Jared. Well, I don't think these are in any particular order,
No,
but
not really.
But okay, another one: social interaction or lack thereof, which I would agree 100%. You know, kids. Kids are very social creatures. Here, do you need something else to?
No, it's okay.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, kids, we all are, well, not all, but a lot of people are very social creatures, and so it helps them learn in that way. I keep trying to look at the camera, and there is no camera, so I'll just talk to end this out. So anyways, definitely social interaction is a big difficulty with students, without a doubt. And I mean, one way teachers can kind of hopefully help the students with this is, giving them opportunities with their assignments and their group work, but also be aware that it is difficult with group work to coordinate everything as well. So that can be a big challenge. You might want to move that book below forward a little bit. Okay. And the last thing Jared mentioned was not students feeling like there isn't quite the need to speak up or necessarily be heard in lectures or in classes, which I couldn't agree with more. My top 3 challenges for students. Here we need to give some solutions. So yeah, we gave a solution for staying focused, which was, this is more on the teacher and to some extent, or on the student as well, is get up and move around a little bit. I would also recommend, if you can, occasionally take your learning elsewhere. What I mean is go if you have a front or a back porch, go sit out there for a little bit. And when you do your reading, just sometimes changing up the environment can help. With social interactions, don't be afraid to reach out to your classmates and your peers. There's really no other tip I would say in terms of social interaction besides, just try to interact with people. I know it's different in an online format. Not being able to speak up, I think students need to understand that they have more ways now than one to reach their professors, and they should be taking advantage of that. But that's also kind of on the teacher to some extent of making their students feel comfortable to do that as well. So, there's 2 sides to that coin. All right. Now, my top 3 for students, biggest challenge is staying disciplined. Students have a busy schedule with all this stuff online, a lot of assignments and things, so it's very important for them to stay disciplined. For young kids, sadly, I think this comes from the parents. I mean, there's no really other, I don't think we can expect young children to know how to stay disciplined. But for older kids, that's on them. I think
it just takes practice.
It does. But you kind of have to be taught and learn how to do it too. Mm-hmm. Also, finding a balance and setting boundaries of how long you're studying and when you're studying is really important, which leads me to my last and biggest challenge for students, which is a lot more self-learning, autonomous learning, which I think for students, they have to kind of figure out what are the best ways and strategies for them to learn. And some of that also comes from the parents and the teacher helping them as well.
I don't think most students care.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think
I'm
you might
projecting.
I think you might be right there to some extent, Jared. But the students or the teacher need to
someone has give to care.
Sure, they need to have a reason to care. Hopefully, and I mean, school isn't the end all be all. Education is very important, but it's not the end all be all. But I think hopefully students and teachers are kind of realizing some of these things. Yeah, play that song, my man. We're gonna.
I don't know. You've been going for. I didn't.
Play that song. Play that song.
I don't know if you had a whole nother section.
No, I don't. But yeah. So, anyways, I hope this episode could give some insight and perspective on what it is like for teachers and students during this time where so many people are doing fully or even half online learning. It is a very different experience. I think we need to acknowledge that. There are some good things about the experience, also some bad things. And I hope that these tips that we've given and through our discussion, some people have some ideas of what they can do if they feel like they are a little disconnected from their classmates or having some difficulty. It's okay to understand that right now things aren't the easiest and things are not the quote-unquote norm. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to your friends and family or your teachers. And I truly hope, and I think it's safe to say Jared and I both hope here at the Untranslatable podcast, that everybody out there learning online or otherwise is making the most of their education and learning something good. And hopefully we wish you all good lives and a good education. So with that being said, as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, Dziękujemy, muchas gracias. That was a good one. I've been practicing a little. Not really. Muchas gracias, shisha, and do svidania. I feel like this episode has made me appreciate my job a little bit more in some ways. You know?
Yeah.
Some of the
Which
good
one?
and the bad. All of them. All of them. All of them. And this one too, Jared. Being a podcast
is this a job?
Oh yeah, it's a big job, Jared. I mean,
for me, you have to get paid for it to be a job.
that's fair. I don't know though. We do put a lot of effort into this. I feel like we both put a lot of thought into these episodes.
That's true.
You know, so I think
about it.
Right. No, we just off the cuff. Don't prepare.
I mean, I have before.
And some of those episodes are actually more fun.
Yeah.
But it is very a whole different beast. That's for sure. That's for sure. I kind of want to. Let's hear the rest of this song out, my man. This song is crazy, dude. Ningen Isu. These guys are just awesome. Oh, I didn't realize the drummer had skulls on his Hawaiian-esque
those are
style
skulls?
shirt.
For some reason, I thought they were pineapples. He kills this solo.
He does.
He really does just look like someone's dad, which makes it so much better.
Right.
It's like I can see him in the carpool lane at a third grade.
And then just on weekends, he just shreds.
Yeah.
Just melts faces with his guitar solos. Oh, here's the part. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, this group is something else, dude. 136,000 subscribers. I mean, they gotta definitely have a following on YouTube for
the song
sure.
has 7 million views.
Holy crap! I didn't even realize that. That's wild.
You could tell when they're. I like the way they transition.
Oh, for sure. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I hope this will be me when I'm older like that, dude. just this like why is Gramps shredding on guitar?
They transition almost like a classical song, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like it has different movements.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah, that's true. That is true.